Welcome back everyone to Gotcha Interact. Today we're going to be taking a look at the second half of the 1.0 Zenless Zone 0 banner today. This character we're looking at is Zhu Yuan. Let's go through this banner and really decide if this character or maybe even her weapon is for your account. And if you do enjoy the video, go ahead and like and subscribe and check out the rest of the channel for other videos you may be interested in. Now onto the video.
The character we're going to be talking about is Zhu Yuan. Now, looking at her like normal and their triple and multiples, considering this is a new type of way we're going to be looking at this, let's go ahead and talk about her basic attacks, her dodge, her assists, her specials, her chains, everything. Let's just talk about her kit. Then we'll get into some questions about, especially with an early game like this, is grabbing a character extremely early especially a really good choice, or should you save and wait for some other really good characters, or maybe should you pull on a character banner that's already out now before she goes away. So once again, let's go ahead and jump right into her basic attack. She has two versions of her basic attack, an assault mode and a suppressive mode. The first mode is the assault mode, and basically you'll just be using your normal basic attack button to activate this. It unleashes a flurry of martial arts, dealing basically up to about 5 attacks of physical and ether damage, and when the 4th or 5th strike that she hits an enemy with, she will obtain 1 enhanced shot shell, and she can get a max of 1 that can be obtained per activation of this basic attack. While using this skill, drag the joystick to a certain direction basically, and then press the basic attack as well. And just like other characters can do, she'll do a dash attack, which is called firepower offensive, and she will readjust to face that selected direction that you push her towards. Also, if you're doing this, you can then hold this while you're in the assault mode. If you hold your basic attack, you'll then switch to the suppressive mode. While you're then in suppressive mode, you can then use your basic attacks again. You will unleash up to 3 shot shell piercing attacks, which will deal physical damage, and then if Zhu Yuan has enhanced shot shells, upon firing these, 1 enhanced shot shell will be consumed, dealing massive ether damage. While using this skill, you can drag the joystick once again, similar to the other way, and you'll then be able to do a dash attack, but instead this is called overwhelming firepower, which will do the same thing as what you were doing before, but it'll basically allow you to do more damage, and then it'll readjust Zhu Yuan to that specific direction. And then while you're under suppressive mode, you can then hold your basic attack version again, and then that'll switch you to assault mode. Basically, doing that hold on your basic attack will then switch her to the other mode that she can have.
Now let's quickly talk about Zhu Yuan's dodge and dash attacks. Of course, as with any character, you're going to press the dodge button to activate her dodge to dodge those enemy attacks, and you can also perform a series of little attacks that you can do when you do these. So while you're in assault mode of the basic attack that Vixen just talked about, you're going to press the basic attack after a dodge to activate this, okay? And then you're going to deal some physical damage doing so. Now, if you're in the suppressive mode, it adds a little bit to this. It's going to be the same motion as a dash attack, and you're going to unleash a shot shell piercing attack that's going to deal physical damage. If Zhu Yuan has enhanced shot shells upon firing this, you will consume 1 of these enhanced shot shells to deal a big amount of ether damage. Her dodge counter is pretty simple. You're just going to press the basic attack button during a perfect dodge to activate it, and it's just going to deal some ether buckshot damage. And you will also gain 1 enhanced shot shell when you use this, so that's going to be good to get those shot shells so that you can consume those during the suppressive mode of the basic attack.
Now let's go over and talk about her different assists. Also, like other characters, she will have a quick assist, an evasive assist, and also an assist follow-up. In her quick assist covering shot, when the on-field character is launched, she will then use the switch to activate her to jumping on field, which then shoots enemies in front of her with an ether buckshot, dealing ether damage. She can also gain 1 enhanced shot shell on this skill use. Then doing the evasive skill assist, guarded backup, when the character on field is about to be attacked, then you can switch out to a different character, which will dodge the enemy's attack and activate vital view. While doing the assist follow-up, defensive counter, you can use a skill button after an evasive assist to activate this attack. This attack will then deal physical damage and ether damage, and upon activation of doing it, it will gain 3 enhanced shot shells to Zhu Yuan.
Now talking about Zhu Yuan's special attack, the basic version of this, or basically when you don't have enough energy, if you use her skill, you're going to shoot ether buckshots that deal ether damage, and this can be repeated 3 times by repeatedly pressing the skill button. Also note that your anti-interrupt level will be increased while using this. Now, looking at her EX special attack, or when you have enough energy, when you activate this, you're also going to deal ether damage, but it's going to be a lot more damage in the multiplier, and upon activating this, you will gain 3 enhanced shot shells.
Now talking about her chain attack and then her ultimate as well. In her chain attack, when you use the chain attack, the character will activate and use modified master firearm to execute a saturated attack, firing lasers and seeking missiles to deal massive ether damage. And then upon activation of using this chain attack, she will then gain 3 enhanced shot shells. In her ultimate, called Max Eradication Mode, When the decibel rating is at maximum, you can then use this chain or ultimate attack. Using the modified Master Firearm as well, she will then do another massive hit of ether damage, and upon activation, similarly to her chain attack, she will gain 3 enhanced shot shells.
Now that we've talked about Zhu Yuan's base kit, let's look at her core passive as well as her additional ability. In her core passive, this states that when Zhu Yuan is under her suppressive mode, using those enhanced shot shells will increase her damage by 20% at level 1. When attacking stunned enemies, this damage buff is going to be increased by an additional 20%. When Zhu Yuan enters the battlefield, she will immediately gain 6 enhanced shot shells. Now quickly looking at her additional ability, this just states that when another support character in your squad shares the same attribute as Zhu Yuan, being Ether, or the same faction, being that kind of patrol faction or section 6, Zhu Yuan's crit rate will be increased by 30% for 10 seconds after using an EX special attack, chain attack, or ultimate.
Now that we've already talked about the character in depth, talking about everything in their actual kit, let's go ahead and talk about her W engine. Now her W engine is called Riot Suppressor Mark 6, and this is an attack type weapon with obviously the rarity of S rank. The main stat on the ability at level 1 is going to give you 19.2% crit damage, and the maximum at level 60 is going to give you 48% crit damage. At star 1, it increases ether damage by 25%, and then launching an extra special attack grants the equipper 8 charge stacks, stacking up to 8 times. Whenever the equipper's basic attack or dash attack deals ether damage, it consumes a charge stack and increases the skill's damage by 45%. This is an extremely good weapon, obviously. Obviously, it's going to be best for what you can look at as a character. For Zhu Yuan, you're going to be looking obviously for this character. It's her personal weapon. Makes the most sense why it's going to be best for her. She's the only one who can really use it though. If you really look at any other character, obviously right now, the 5-star weapons can be used on other ones, once again, like other games for stat sticks, but similar to other games that aren't really as extensive, can't really use and swap around too many weapons right now. If you look at in general what you have for all the characters, even for the attack sets, even looking at some other characters, yes, once again, stat sticks are going to be nice, but there is no other attack character that has the ether attribute on them. So it's very difficult to actually use this while getting, the full usage out of the weapon. Now, with this W engine, you could throw it on, once again, another character to get a stat stick, but the ability on it's not going to be very useful for you. So if you're going for this W engine, obviously you're trying to get Zhu Yuan at the same time.
Now let's really dive into the nitty-gritty of this video and really just ask some of these important questions that can help you decide on whether you want this character for your account or not. So the first thing we ask is, do you actually need Zhu Yuan on your account? How valuable will she be for you? Another way you can look at this is, what elements would you need? What roles do you not have filled? Or who else maybe that you already have does fill this role? And asking these questions is good to kind of know what you have to work with so that you know how valuable for your situation is the character. So when looking at Zhu Yuan, we know she's an ether damage character and she's in the Section 6, the patrol, the kind of security of New Eridu faction. And so she's going to work well with characters like that. I think one thing that gets overlooked in the game a little bit, just by people I've seen, not everyone, but when you build your team of 3 units, you want to be making sure, at least for the most part, or for the characters that, like your damage dealers or your supports, but really all 3, you want to make sure that they're getting their additional abilities procced on and that they're actually working for you. So like if you're using Nekomana, she wants to use another physical or another Cunning Hare's unit so that she's getting extra damage after dealing assault. Like that's just how she works, and every character has that thing. And in Zhu Yuan's case, you really want to make sure you're getting that to proc because you're getting 30% crit rate after doing certain attacks. That's going to be massive for your overall damage and just consistency for her, allowing you to go into other things like crit damage when we do get further into endgame and talk about drive discs and whatnot. So when building a team, that is something to think about. So I think just bare bones, since like Vixen stated more in the beginning of the video, we're at the early game of Zenless Zone Zero. The game just came out recently, and so a lot of people have on their mind, should I even pull these first units, like with Ellen, and now here we have Zhu Yuan, or should I just wait a little bit into further end game? Maybe we'll get some support limited characters, because right now it's just Ellen and Zhu Yuan, who are both damage dealing characters. And that's a fair question to ask, because usually supports have more longevity, you could say. I mean, if you look at Star Rail, Zila was the first character, and yeah, you would most people are going to argue she's been power crept, which is true to an extent. But the thing is, she still can be used, provided you're using other characters or just newer supports that are just S tier on the charts, I think that's something that, you know, can be said about Zenless Zone Zero in this case too. I think Ellen will age pretty okay, pretty much just because of Sokaku being such an amazing A tier unit, probably one of the best in the game, arguably. But then also Lycan being a natural support for Ellen. And I think with Zhu Yuan, Nicole is going to be one of those A tier units that's just like, if you're not using Nicole, what are you doing? Because Nicole is the only Ether unit in the game up until Zhu Yuan. Now it's just Zhu Yuan and Nicole for the Ether roster, right? So Nicole's naturally going to make sense. And honestly, I think you could skip, and that's okay, as long as you're doing fine with another damage dealer. If you pulled Ellen, I think you should skip. If you got a standard character that is focused on damage, like Nekomata or maybe even Kolita, then maybe it would be okay to skip because you already have some damage. You can do things on your account. And even the 4-stars like Billy, Corrin, or Anton, they're damage dealers, so you can get by with them as well, provided you're building a good team around them. So I think waiting until we do get a dedicated support would be a good idea, but I also don't think you have to.
Now we're going to be taking a look at the next question, which is what kinds of teams are you trying to build? Now, obviously, looking in general at these teams, the only team you're once again, as Rift already kind of took some time to go into, is looking at mainly just making a, obviously going into a more element focused or an attribute focused into the Ether idea, right? So that's why you're going to be grabbing Nicole. But Nicole's not just there just to add more, just there for fun. She's not just there to increase more ether damage just because she's just there to do ether damage. If you look at her core passives and her additional abilities, she, decreases defense as well as she increases ether damage of her teammates to opponents that she hits already. So having already Nicole on the team is going to be a pretty good, once again, as we already kind of stated, as Rift already went into a little bit, she's already going to be a really good support for her. Just like Sokaku is a really good support for Ellen, it's the same way why Nicole is extremely good for Zhu Yuan. And as more Ether characters come out, and hopefully a support, or even, a defense character could come out, or something like that, maybe helps a little bit more in the defense department, considering the only character we have right now for defense is Ben. Maybe we could see something like that in the future. But still, I wouldn't say that it's really a problem to go after that, because usually right now, Ellen does have two really good teammates already right now, but with Nicole already being a support, that leaves open actually a third slot for a lot of different characters that you could use. Whether you want to use another stun character, a character that you kind of already have, like Ambi, if you get another support character that you want to use, if you want to throw Sokaku in there as well to give some extra attack buffing, throw Lucy in there for the same reason, getting some either extra support characters to just help Zhu Yuan do more damage, or you could swap over to a different character. Maybe not somebody who's going to be very quick swappy, considering Zhu Yuan kind of likes to be on field a little bit as much as possible, but you could go for another stun character or another anomaly character, a character like Grace, a character like Piper, who also is an anomaly character. So there's just a lot of different things that you can do and fill that third slot with, a character like Koleda, if you have lost a 50-50 to another character, that could be useful for you. So in general, once again, the 2 out of 3 slots are already kind of filled up if you have Zhu Yuan, is to use Nicole with Zhu Yuan. And then the third character is just going to be a random character that you're going to grab just to throw in there for either extra damage, extra just help in maybe a supportive aspect if you're going to use that, or just an idea of doing extra stun damage, whatever it may be. That's really what you're focusing on for that third character.
And I like how you brought up the stun units, just because if we remember looking at Zhu Yuan's core passive, she gets that buff to her own damage while in suppressive mode, and then if you're attacking a stunned enemy, that damage buff gets increased by another 20%. So I think using a character like Ambi, or even Lycan, who's also the stun 5-star, or if we get a future stun 5-star, I think those would be pretty good flex characters to use, just because that would help Zhu Yuan deal more damage a little bit quicker and also give you a window for more damage opportunity as well. The next question we're going to look at is, do you need the W engine? And Vixen did talk about this earlier, and with other games, and this also being early game, it hasn't even been a month with Zenless Zone Zero. Is this W engine going to actually be worth it for your tapes? All right, or do you want to just save? And in my personal opinion, I think just grabbing the character is going to be enough. You're getting a lot of other things in other characters. I mean, Nicole is already such a massive asset to Zhu Yuan that she's kind of a must use for team building that we just talked about. And it just kind of comes down to, is the weapon actually necessary? And necessary, probably not, But would it be fun to use and pretty useful? Oh yeah, I mean, you're getting a lot of ether damage increase right off the bat. And as an S tier W engine, it's naturally going to have a higher base attack than an A tier W engine. And having crit damage as a main stat is going to feel pretty good too, just because we do know Zhu Yuan in her additional ability is giving herself 30% crit rate when using another ether character or character of the same faction. I mean, it's a great W engine for her, but like Vixen also stated, it's really only going to be good for her just because we don't really have another ether character that's of the attack type. And yes, Nicole is ether, but she cannot use this W engine's passive because she's not an attack type character. So I would say if you really want it and you know you want Zhu Yuan, you want to make her cracked, go for it. But if you're thinking about the longevity of your account and trying to think about endgame and newer characters, I really heavily think that those newer characters that come out, especially once we get some more support type characters, those are going to be your most high value targets when spending the currency on any banner, is to pull for those new characters.
Now looking at the end of our summary section, we're going to be talking about weighing the dangers between the M0 or the Mindscape 0, just the first copy of the character, then looking at the Mindscape, seeing if they're really worth it for the character. Now, looking here at Zhu Yuan, honestly, she does really good damage. It seems like, obviously, if you've played enough of the game, you've already been able to use her, actually, in the game. We've already kind of gotten to be able to be, quote-unquote, a part of the beta before actually, the character was out playable for us to consistently be able to play. So technically, a lot of what she can do, we've already seen, we've already probably used her a lot, so you already kind of know how she works, and her damage is pretty good. It's consistent, she's got a lot of ether damage, it really does help, especially when you pair it with a character like Nicole, so there's a lot of great things to show in the gameplay already, so I do think that she's an extremely good character at M0. In my personal opinion, especially with a lot of these new games, I don't really feel like it's necessary to go after Eidolons, Constellations, Mindscapes, whatever the term may be of just multiple copies of the character. There's really no reason to, especially when the game is so new. Now, especially because the game is so new, if you really like the character and you wait for some other characters to come out and nobody really kind of strikes that nerve as much as someone like Zhu Yuan does, or Ellen or whatever, then you can actually go back afterwards because the reruns are probably going to be pretty quick. Just wait until they rerun again, save up your polychrome and just grab another copy of them afterwards. But honestly, I would just say stay at M0, and in my personal opinion, obviously with most of the games, go for light cones, go for weapons, go for W engines before you go for Mindscapes. But if you are looking to go after some Mindscapes, let's go ahead and talk about the first two. The M1 is called Quick Reload. It states that when Zhu Yuan hits an enemy with chain attacks or her ultimate, she will gain the Quick Reload effect. And when Zhu Yuan has the Quick Reload effect and uses up all of her enhanced shot shells, the Quick Reload effect will be consumed and to instantly gain her either 6 or then 9 of her enhanced shot shells. So by doing this, honestly, that's going to help you a lot more to get a lot more of your enhanced shot shells, basically allowing you to do even more after you do it. So in my personal opinion, this is a very good idea. Basically what it's talking about, it's either 6 or 9. It's talking about if you use 6, you'll get from the chain attack. If you do the chain attack, you'll get 6 if you use them all up. If you use the ultimate, use them all up, then you'll get 9 enhanced shot shells. So I do think that getting all of these is going to be really good. I do think it's a good idea. It's a very nice and very comfy M1. It allows her to be a little bit longer on field. I don't really feel like it's necessary though. It does help once again with her being on field longer, especially if you're going to be going into the suppressive mode and doing a lot more of that damage by using up a lot of the things that you can do. I think using that is going to be a little bit better for you, but I don't necessarily think that it's extremely necessary. Looking at our M2, it's called Ether Ember. It states that while in suppressive mode, which is usually the version you're probably going to be in doing the enhanced shot shell, basic attacks that do ether damage, Zhu Yuan's anti-interrupt level is increased, and her damage taken is reduced by 10%. When Zhu Yuan hits an enemy with her enhanced shot shells, the target takes 10% more basic attack damage and dash attack damage as well, stacking up 5 times and lasting for 5 seconds each. Each shot adds 1 stack of this effect, and repeated triggers reset the duration, meaning that you can constantly be at 5 seconds. So it doesn't stack, the 5 seconds don't stack, it's just going to be constantly resetting the 5 seconds, which how often she does those basic attacks and how often you're probably going to be doing dashing attacks as well, you can keep that timer up pretty consistently until you get to the maximum of 5 stacks, which is a 50% base attack and dash attack damage increase, while also helping you not get knocked around as well as taking less damage. I think if you were going to go for a specific Mindscape, especially early while looking at her, I would once again keep her at M0, but if you are going to go for Mindscapes, I would say to go for the M2. It's very, very good. I do think that combined the M1 and the M2 are great, but I think the M1 is nice, but it's like if you're going to go for the M1, you might as well just go for the M2. So my personal opinion, if you're going to go for Mindscapes, go for the M2. We hope that this video could help you decide on whether this character or her W engine coming up on the next banner are for you. As always, if you have any suggestions that may help other players, go ahead and let us know down in the comments. Make sure to like, subscribe, and also check out the Discord as well. Thank you again for watching the video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.